you influence influence the selection of the party while you're registering to vote. And of course, if you go to street fairs and things like that, your local Republican Party, your local Democrat Party have booths set up where they want you to register to vote. And of course, they want you to register to vote to their party, because if you don't, well, what's the point of them being there to tell you that you need to register? Are you kidding me? I'm still not on. Sorry, this is a complete aside. Are you serious? God, I hate YouTube. At any rate, you know what? This is the last time I'm doing YouTube. From now on, I'm just gonna video it on Screencast-O-Matic and upload it later. Screw this. Oh, now I am. All right. So for those of you on YouTube trying to catch up, you missed 4 minutes of me bitching about YouTube not working. Then we started talking about this idea that King County, Seattle, has to pay for postage. This is supposed to increase voter turnout. And then I got into a little discussion about why voter registrations are going up, decisions is going down, 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 down. And nobody seems to be able to figure out why this is happening. And I postulated that the reason this is happening is because they're paying people to register people to vote, but they are not yet paying people to vote. Once they start doing that, well, not officially, of course, but once they start doing that, then, we may see a fundamental change in voter participation, as the phrase goes. But in the meantime, that's what you've missed. Should you have been on the unreliable YouTube side of things, however, comma, period, end of sentence. So in King County, they've hit on this idea that they're going to pay for the postage for the voter for the ballot, and this is supposed to make it easier for King County residents to vote, because you don't have to come up with the 50 cents or 55 cents or what does it cost to mail a stamp these days? I don't think anybody even knows. That'd be a great trivia question. How much does a stamp cost these days? Once upon a time, I had reams of, I wasn't really a stamp collector, but my grandmother wanted me to be. And so I had books upon books of stamps that I just didn't really care that much. Is it 50 cents now? Who knows? I don't know. I haven't bought a stamp in, I don't know how long it's been since I bought a stamp. If I need to mail something, which is a very rare occurrence, but if I do need to mail something, I haul it down to the post office. I stand in line. I pay with my debit card. And believe me, if I had to vote, that's how I would do it. If I needed to do that to vote, that's how I would do it. I'm a citizen. I believe that voting is a responsibility. It is part of being an engaged, virtuous citizen, as Montague wrote. That's part of my duties. I go down and I vote. I liked going to the polling places. I really did. I enjoyed it. I used to take, up until they told me I couldn't do it anymore, I would take Ben with me to go voting so that he would, at the ripe old age of 3 and 4, get a feel for what was going on. And I would explain it to him. And at one point I would even talk to him about it. What should we vote on here? What should we vote on this? Usually it was no. But then they came out and told me we couldn't do that anymore in my precinct and in my residence here in the great Pacific Northwest. I'm told that I must vote by mail. There are no polling places because they're too expensive. And so now King County, Seattle, has decided that it's going to pay for the postage for the ballots so that people, in theory, I guess, will be more likely to vote. The problems with this are, they should be pretty obvious. The problems with this should be obvious right off the top of the bat. Number one, okay, let's say that it does increase voting. Let's say, for the sake of argument, and I'm not convinced that it will. I'm not convinced that the reason people aren't voting is because it costs them 50 cents for a stamp. You will have to show me some pretty empirical evidence that that's the reason people don't vote. I don't believe that. I don't even accept that as a theory, let alone a hypothesis. The idea that people don't vote because they have to put a stamp on something is ludicrous. That's not why they're not voting. Be that as it may, the powers that be believe that it is. And if they just make it easier, if they just make it so easy for people to vote, they'll do it. And we'll get that turnout. And so King County, Seattle, says, well, let's do this. Now, here's the problem. Seattle, Washington, and I kind of talked about this the other day with comparisons between Seattle and San Francisco. San Francisco is considered the most liberal city in the world. It's really not. I mean, it thinks that it is, but its effect is watered down because of the massiveness of the state and the relatively small size of San Francisco. Seattle, on the other hand, is every bit as wackadoodle liberal as San Francisco is, every bit as wackadoodle. But it has the additional advantage of being literally 1/3 of the entire state's voters. Think about that for just a moment. Literally 1/3 of the entire voting population of the state of Washington lives in Seattle, or at least King County. I realize Seattle doesn't cover all of King County, but it covers most of it, enough of it that it doesn't really matter in the broad scheme of things. So 1/3 of the voters, 33%. Now, what's the average turnout of voters in an election? Anybody? Bueller? It's something that I watched pretty closely over the last, 10, 15 years. And it varies somewhere between, I've seen it as low as 25% at one point, and just a bit over 50%. So if 1/3 of your voters live in one specific area, and that one specific area is dominated by one particular ideology, how much effect do you think that's going to have if even half of those folks show up to vote on anything that's a statewide referendum? Washington State, for example, has no income tax. And it would require, as I understand the Constitution of the state of Washington, it would require a constitutional amendment to get that. Not that they haven't talked about it, not that they hadn't thought about it. But again, if 1/3 of the people that are making this decision live in one particular area of the state and belong to one particular ideology, and now they're told that their ballots are free, they don't even have to, there's no reason for you not to send it in. As if not having a stamp was a reason not to vote. And again, I don't buy that, but let's take their argument to the extreme. How do you think that referendum is going to go? And it's possible I misunderstood the Constitution. It's possible that it could be done by the state legislature, but that's not how I read it. So we'll see what happens. So at any rate, this has created a big discussion. Here's the Secretary of State this morning as she was discussing this whole thing. Yeah, it is similar to the Bay Area versus Central Valley, but again, San Francisco's issues are not Los Angeles's issues. And while San Francisco is extremely liberal and the Central Valley is very moderate at best, I would call it slightly blue. But even in that, you're diluted by the rest of the state in the sense of Los Angeles's issues aren't always necessarily the same as San Francisco. So, but here in Washington, you've got this massive Emerald City and then everybody else. And that, again, 1/3 of the voters, if 1/3 of the voters in California lived in San Francisco, yeah, it'd be a different dynamic, but it's not quite the case. So anyway, here's the Secretary of State this morning.
You are now giving 1/3 of the voters in our state the ability to return their ballot for free. And the other 2/3 don't have that same option. So it sets up a couple of problems. The first one is voter confusion. As you know, the media market in our area comes out of Seattle, but that reach goes over the Cascades, goes all the way down to almost Portland area. So, you have a group of voters getting one message, but it doesn't apply to them. Then the second thing is just you're treating them differently, and the courts have been very reluctant to allow that to happen.
So there you go. 1/3 of the voters in the state of Washington are being told you can return your ballot for free. The 1/3 that support, for lack of better phraseology, a liberal ideology, they come from the city of Seattle, they come from that area, they are more inclined to lean that way. Does that mean everybody in Seattle is a flaming liberal? No. And I know that's the case. but the vast majority of them are. And reality is, and here's the thing nobody wants to talk about, the conservatives were going to vote anyway, whether it cost them 50 cents or not. The stamp wasn't stopping conservatives from voting. And I have a hard time believing that the stamp was what was stopping liberals from voting. I don't understand. I don't see the math. I don't see that as really the defining issue. But the council in King County saw it as enough that they were willing to fork over $2 million, $1 million to pay for the stamp that goes on every ballot. And I guess they couldn't cut a deal with the Postal Service to get it a little cheaper. Who knows? I mean, Amazon cuts a deal with them, right? Why can't King County do it? Oh, that's right, because they're trying to cut Jeff Bezos' head off in Seattle, and they probably don't want to. They don't want to do that. The other 2/3 of the voters in the states are told, screw you. You go buy a stamp. Now, again, I'm going to get my ballot. This is for the midterms, the primaries and the midterms this year. I'm going to get my ballot and I'm going to go vote. I'm going to put a stamp on it. I will, standing in line at the Safeway or wherever I'm checking out, they'll say, is there anything else? And I say, yeah, give me a book of stamps, give me a sheet of stamp, whatever, so that I can mail my ballot. Or, the day before election day or whatever, I'll trundle down to the post office at the bottom of the hill and stand in line and say, I'd like to mail my ballot. Because I believe that voting is a virtuous thing for a citizen to do. It's something that a citizen should be involved with. And the fact that the government is now paying for me to mail my ballot, for me to be virtuous, is a little unnerving. It's a little, you could just take it to a ballot drop box. I'm sure I don't have a clue where they are in my county, but I'm sure that they exist. I just never bothered to learn. Does it bother anybody else that the government, particularly the government of King County, which is, again, seriously left-leaning, to use Mark Zuckerberg's phrase, is trying to increase voter turnout, knowing that it has 1/3 of the voters already, and by extension, screw everybody else, screw the other 2/3 voters, and theoretically then they won't participate because their ballots don't have a stamp on it, and that ain't fair. And off we will go. So now the Secretary of State this morning, the other thing that she talked about that I didn't put in there was she has asked the governor for additional funds, emergency funds, to pay for everybody else's ballot. You with me here? So now, theoretically, if she gets the money and the governor has not responded on this yet, I guess they're still working on it according to her, but the idea here is they're going to, let's just pay for everybody's ballot. It's not fair if only King County gets it. And now it's already started King County saying, well, if you're going to pay for everybody else's, why do we have to pay for ours? Why shouldn't you have to pay for us too? Why do we have to pay? Why do we have to fork over our money if you're going to just pay for everybody else's? We were trying to be unfair in our favor, and now you're making it fair in everybody's favor, but you're making us pay for it. That's not fair, and we can't have that. This is going to be fun, huh? The biggest issue in our midterm elections in the state of Washington isn't going to be who's going to be our next senator. It isn't going to be who's going to be in Congress. It isn't going to be tax levies. It isn't going to be any of that. It's going to be who's going to pay for the damn stamp. And you wonder why people who value liberty shake their heads and just go, really? What? This is the issue? This is what it's going to be about? Who's going to pay for a stamp? I mean, if it's really that big of a deal, why doesn't the federal government just tell the post office not to charge for ballots? If it's really that big of a deal. And again, I don't believe that it is. I don't buy this nonsense that stamps are why people aren't voting. People aren't voting for a lot of reasons. Number one, they don't see the reason to. They have become so conditioned to my vote doesn't matter that they believe their vote doesn't matter. And so they stay home. Why do I need to vote? That's the main reason why, because we have so conditioned people to believe that nonsense that rather than teaching them to be part of a participatory representative democracy, that it requires this is your opportunity to speak. This is your opportunity. This is free speech in action. Oh, your vote doesn't matter. The corporations are going to pay for it anyway. They've already bought the elections. And here we have a county trying to buy an election and nobody objects. Nobody says, what the hell are you trying to do, King County? It's not enough. You already have a third of the voters. You can pretty much get your way on everything anyway. People aren't, the rest of the state looks at that and goes, well, why bother? Seattle's just going to overrule us anyway. Seattle's just going to force through whatever they want anyway, never realizing that 2/3 of the voters could get together and beat them. It's some years ago, I was in Modesto, California, and they wanted to go to something. The city wanted to go to the city council. They wanted to change it from at-large seats. They had 6 county seats, 6 city council seats, and a mayor. So 7 people. Makes for a lot of 4-3 votes. And so they wanted to go to district elections because they felt like some areas of the city were not being properly represented. And the lawsuit said there were not enough minorities on the city council. Which, I mean, you can't argue that, I guess, when the entire city council is basically, Casper the Friendly Ghost, I guess. I get the argument, but the logic behind it didn't fly. And I'll tell you why. The city was somewhere on the area of 42 to 43% Hispanic by population at that time, which meant that, well, in a wide open election, in an open seat election, all Hispanics, all Latinos had to do was put 1 or 2, 3 candidates up there and all vote for those 3 candidates. And one of them was guaranteed to win. They couldn't lose, in fact. But there weren't any Latinos on the city council, and why not? Nobody was running. And on the rare occasion when they did run, what do you think the turnout for the Latino vote in the city of Modesto was? Well, I don't track it that way, but I can tell you that after they went to district elections and they set up a District 2, which was specifically designed to put a Latino on the city council. I can tell you the first guy that won that seat was as white as you and me, white as me for sure. I don't know about you because you may not be white, but certainly as white as I am. You know why? Because only 800 people out of that entire district of 33,000 voters showed up to vote. He was a good man. Don't get me wrong. Dave Gear was a great guy. But even today, that district is represented by the lowest number of votes cast for a candidate on that city council. Just because you have a powerful block doesn't mean you're using it properly. And stamps isn't going to change that. What this tells me is that the progressive side of things in King County is concerned that its people aren't being active enough. That somehow or another, they're concerned that their control is slipping away. And so they're desperately grasping at anything to try to get progressives to show up to polls on statewide issues so that they can control it again. I'm just not convinced that stamps is the way to do that. I'm just not convinced of that. Any more than I was convinced that going to district elections was going to automatically put a minority on the city council in Modesto, and it didn't, at least not for a few years. And who knows what will happen, next election. District elections don't guarantee anything, except that there will be some areas that will be, for lack of better phraseology, underrepresented. because now you have the city divided by interest areas instead of by open seats. You don't have anybody on that council who's smart enough to go into the districts that don't necessarily get all that representation and convince them to support him or her. And so now you have the north side of town, the east side of town, the west side of town, the southwest side of town, all, represented by people who actually showed up to vote, making decisions on the city council against one guy or gal who has, 275 votes. I mean, do you think that they're going to listen to him or her? Do you think they have anything to say that matters? It doesn't work, folks. It doesn't fly in the face of the math. The fact that there are stamps doesn't change the voting patterns. It's not the stamps. The problem is we don't have a virtuous citizenry. We don't have people who think to themselves, I need to participate in this because it's part of my job, my responsibilities as a citizen. We haven't taught citizenship. We've taught handouts. Here, let me lick your stamp for you and put it on your ballot because you're too stupid to do it otherwise. That's the message King County is sending. And the Secretary of State is now sending to the rest of the state going, well, it ain't fair that they get their stamps licked for them. How come I don't get my stamp licked for me? I would laugh my living ass off if turnout in King County goes down. Other places goes up. That would be funny. We'll have to wait and see what happens. So it's 5:30, 565-DAVE, 209-565-3283 is the text machine. Email is dave@thedavebowmanshow.com. And of course, we're on the web. We're actually working on YouTube. You didn't miss anything because we recapped everything. So stay with us. We got to take a little break. We'll be right back.
Smile for me, I give you everything. You're the cutest thing that I have ever seen.
1 in 3 adults in America have pre-diabetes, but most don't know it. To let people know it can be reversed before it becomes type 2 diabetes, professional basketball player Julius Randle is doing everything in reverse.
I'm only dunking with reverse windmills. I drove the whole way to practice in reverse. I don't recommend it. This move's called the reverse shuffle. I do recommend it. And it took me months to learn how to speak in reverse, like this. Years 10 almost for diabetes type 2 with living Ben has mama. In other words, my mom has been living with type 2 diabetes for almost 10 years. So together, we want to say to the 84 million Americans at risk, exercise and healthy eating can help reverse prediabetes. Start by taking a simple 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Betty can't say that in reverse.
My name is Lola Silvestri, and I'm going to be 95 this year. I was very independent. I fell, and I had to have Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
You wanted to see me?
Yes, please, have a seat. So here's the thing. When this company brought you on, we took a chance on you. You didn't have that 4-year college degree we typically look for.
Right.
But we gave you a shot anyway. And since then, you've worked incredibly hard and given it your all.
Thanks.
You've been an important asset to the team, but I don't think you can be an intern here anymore. We want to hire you.
You're serious?
Absolutely.
Find your next great employee. Introduce yourself to the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
I won't let you down.
I know.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
This is Betty White. I know you don't need one more thing to worry about, but listen, high blood pressure can cause kidney damage, blindness, heart attack, stroke, and you can have high blood pressure even if you feel all right. 1 in 7 adults has it, but it's easy to get your blood pressure checked
and you can treat it if it is too high. So don't worry about it. Don't ignore it. Just see your doctor and check it out.
For your free booklet, visit the Will Rogers Institute at wrinstitute.org and find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey, this is YD from the Ale Evangelist Show, and you're listening to the Podcast 99 Internet Radio Network.
Hey, welcome back. This is Dave. It's Plausibly Live, Dave Bowman Show, right here on Podcast 99 Internet Radio Network. You want to join us? Area code 209-565. Dave is the text machine. Email is dave@thedavebowmanshow.com. And, of course, we're on the web, Facebook, Twitter, and thedavebowmanshow.com, as well as podcast99.org. I don't know. You always get in these debates about why people don't vote. Why people don't vote. Well, I used to get this all the time. Dave, why should I vote? My vote doesn't count. 50 cents ain't going to change that, folks. A stamp being licked for you by government, the government licking your damn stamp isn't going to change that. It isn't going to change that attitude. What will change that attitude? I don't know. Maybe electing people that, are from outside Washington and coming in to change things, get things done. No way we did that. And the reaction has been as predictable as the sunrise. It really has been. Speaking of the Donald this morning, the agreement, the nuclear arms treaty. It's not a treaty. It's important. It's not a treaty. It's just an agreement about nuclear weapons, nuclear proliferation. The president announced this morning that the White House announced this morning that he would be announcing his position on it tomorrow, but it's already leaked because apparently he told the French. And you know what happens as soon as you tell the French? The old saying, tell one Frenchman, everybody knows. But the French have leaked, or somebody has leaked, that the president has decided to withdraw from the Iranian nuclear arms agreement. And your reaction to that news is entirely and utterly predicated on one of two things. Well, it's actually predicated on one thing, because literally nobody listening understands the Iranian nuclear deal. Nobody does. Was it a deal to keep them from getting nuclear weapons? Was it a deal to keep them from getting nuclear weapons for 10 years? Was it a deal to give them a nuclear weapon? Who knows? Because it's not a treaty. See, it's never been debated in the Senate of the United States and ratified. It's just an agreement that a president signed along with a bunch of other countries saying, yeah, we trust you, Mullah. So your reaction to the news that we're going to withdraw from this, and I don't really give a rat's ass who you are, is based on one thing, and that is your political affiliation. If you are a Republican conservative, you are ecstatic. Yay, we're pulling out. That's Trump. He's draining the swamp. We're going to do. And if you are a liberal progressive, you're furious because now you're going to give them nuclear weapons. And that's pretty much the extent of your knowledge of it. So really, here's the thing, folks, and you can sign all the agreements you want. That doesn't change reality. It doesn't change anything. Agreements are the London Naval Treaty of 1921 was supposed to stop the great powers from building nuclear weapons, or not nuclear, but building naval weapons. Did that work? The von Ribbentrop-Molotov Agreement. Anybody remember that one? So this was actually a treaty that was an extension of a previous treaty that was an extension of a previous treaty before that. You know what that treaty said? Germany and Russia will never go to war. We'll never fight each other. And from the instant, before the ink was dry on that one, Hitler was already planning Barbarossa. He had no intention of keeping that. Let's see. Oh yeah, treaties with Native American tribes. Forked tongue, Uncle, great white chief speak with forked tongue. Kept those, didn't we? Let's see, what other agreements can we go through history that, the bottom line is, unless you're willing to, this is, like the unmentionable topic, unless you're actually willing to go in there and conquer and control, the agreement's worth nothing more than the paper it's printed on. That's all it is. And so all this reaction to the president's proposed withdrawal from the Iranian nuclear deal is ludicrous because, again, none of us understand it. None of us know what's in it. None of us know what Iran has. We don't know. And yet we all have strong opinions about it, don't we? Unless you're like Buster and a moderate and I don't know what to think. I know this. I don't know what to think about the agreement other than anytime a president says to me that this is not a treaty, so it doesn't need Senate advice and consent, that sets off an alarm bell in my head. If this is so legit, why can't the Senate discuss it? Seriously, why are we bypassing constitutional process for a piece of paper? That sets me off a little bit. If it's so great, why can't Congress talk about it? What's in it that you don't want Congress to know about it, and by extension, the American people? That causes me to step back. But be that as it may, your piece of paper doesn't change what people know. It doesn't change what engineers understand. It doesn't change science. It doesn't change knowledge. It doesn't make people stupid. They still know how to build a bomb. It's not that hard. It really isn't. If you have the right materials. And apparently the materials to do this are just, floating around everywhere. So, and even if you don't have all the materials you need, it's possible to improvise. It's what science does. It's what engineering does. Is, well, how can we make up for this? Oh, we don't have completely weapons grade plutonium? Well, what happens if we use something else? Let's experiment. I don't know. I know that that every reaction you see and hear today and tomorrow about the Iranian nuclear deal is predicated entirely and only upon the individual speaking's political viewpoint. If they are liberal, they're furious. If they're conservative, they're happy. And that's all you'll have no more knowledge than that. Every liberal on the talking head is going to tell you that this is going to allow Iran to get nuclear weapons. And every conservative talking head is going to tell you that they were already getting nuclear weapons. Now we can get serious about stopping them from getting nuclear weapons. And unless you're willing to invade Iran and take over Iran and squash it down and bomb it back to the Stone Age, you're not doing anything of the sort. And your piece of paper won't change that. End of rant. End of discussion. The United States Navy has announced that it will be putting the officer of the deck of the USS Fitzgerald in front of a special court-martial today. The officer of the deck on June 17th will face a special court-martial today in Washington, D.C., charged with dereliction in the performance of duties through neglect resulting in death. That according to the charge sheet. The officer of the deck is accused of failing to comply with the commanding officer's standing orders, as well as international water navigation rules. It's the officer of the deck's duty to communicate with the ship's combat information center, report ship's contacts to the skipper, operate safely, and alert the crew of imminent collisions. The Navy has not made public any of its investigation into the disaster. A review released last year found that the OOD failed to attempt to contact the commercial ship ACX Crystal, which she probably would not have been able to do anyway, because there was nobody on the bridge of that ship. Nor did she attempt to maneuver to avoid the Crystal until a minute before the collision. At one point, The Fitzgerald crossed the bow of another oncoming merchant ship at a range of less than 650 yards. The officer of the deck never informed the captain, which is a violation of standing orders. And we know what happened from there. The ship's captain was asleep. The AMX Crystal punched into his quarters. He was injured. He also faces an Article 32 hearing to determine if he will be court-martialed later this month. There are some interesting things about this particular special court-martial that have kind of caught my attention in this. This is a special court-martial. And it's basically an intermediate level court. It's a military judge, trial counsel, defense counsel, and at least 3 officers sitting as the jury. The accused may request trial by the judge alone. Regardless of the offense involved, a special court-martial sentence is limited to no more than 12 months confinement, or lesser if they have a lower maximum. Forfeiture of 2/3 basic pay per month, and a bad conduct discharge if they were enlisted, or certain lesser punishment. An officer accused in a special court-martial cannot be dismissed from the service or confined. So this particular officer of the deck cannot be dismissed, cannot be confined, but could lose, 2/3 pay, and certainly would face other issues. The thing that stands out to me about this, folks, going to sea is dangerous. It absolutely is. But there's things here that just bug the crap out of me about this whole story. How does an officer of the deck, a qualified officer of the deck, not know the night orders through and through? How do they not know what their job is? Who qualified this person as an officer of the deck? Where the hell was the chief? On a submarine, we have a chief of the watch. I don't know what they have on surface ships. I've never been on a surface ship. No, served on one. I've been on them, but I don't know. But there are other people around. There's a junior officer of the deck. There's a navigator. The CO was asleep, Jay. I mean, he signed his night orders and went to bed. I mean, we'll get to him in a minute, trust me. But I'm talking about while this is going on, there's an officer of the deck, junior officer of the deck. Somebody is serving as navigator. Somebody is serving as lookouts. Somebody's down in the CIC. Somebody's watching the radar plots. What the hell was going on this ship? How do none of these people pull a Lieutenant JG aside and say, hey, officer of the deck, wake the hell up? 650 yards from another ship before they even had the collision, and nobody noticed? Nobody saw this? Nobody knew what was going on? Yeah, we're going to get to that, Jay. Hang on. Okay, goes by, and everybody goes, whoosh, and nobody thinks to tell the captain. Nobody says, hey, what do the night orders say about this? Nobody says, hey, JG, here's the rules of the road and you're not following them. Let's think about this for just a minute. Let's maneuver out of the way. Let's get out of. Nobody does that? Nobody? I find that improbable, if not outright impossible. Not promoting a conspiracy theory here. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have someone on this officer of the deck, someone who was given the command of a vessel. That's what an officer of the deck is. It is the captain in absence. By the way, do you know that that's what the term lieutenant means? It means in lieu of the captain. That's where that phrase comes from. That's why the Navy has lieutenants, not captains, as O3s and O2s. At any particular rate, this is the person who is responsible for the safe operation of this vessel. And they have to go through a rigorous, and I'm doing the air quote thing here, qualification process before they're allowed. I've watched people wash out from OOD quals. We had a lieutenant who wanted to be an officer of the deck. He didn't have to be. He was a medical officer, but he wanted to feel useless. And so he tried to He tried to qualify junior off the deck, and it was a disaster. It was humorous, but it was a disaster. I would never have slept with him on the con. If I had heard that he somehow or another qualified as con and was on the watch bill, I would have been in control of myself, standing right there next to him, staring at him like, what the hell are you going to do? Because I'm not sleeping while you're in charge. The crew of the Fitzgerald went to sleep with this person on the deck, on the con. And this person didn't follow a single one of the night orders, not one. How the hell did they qualify? And then, and I don't want to make this sexist, I don't want to do that. It turns out that this is a junior officer, a Lieutenant JG, very 02, very junior, and it's a she. And your mind immediately starts wandering, doesn't it? I know mine did. I don't object to women in the Navy. I don't object to women on ships. I have an old sailor's belief that they're bad luck, but, be that as it may. I believe that they are capable of doing the job every bit as well as men have. But the question I have is, did we skimp on the qualifications because we wanted to be politically correct and socially aware? And the reason I ask that question is very simply, not a single one of the night orders was followed. For God's sakes, when I was on the boat, I was an E5, not an O2, an E5, and I wouldn't have violated a captain's night orders for all the money you could give me. I, as a fire control supervisor, had to go to control and read the captain's night orders. All of them. Not just the ones that applied to me, the ones that applied to everybody, because I was expected to know, as a qualified submariner, everything that was going on that ship. So I would read the night orders for the officer of the deck. I would read them for the fire control supervisor and the engineering officer, and I would read them all, and I had to sign my name at the bottom saying, I not only read and understand these, but I will guarantee that I will follow them. And every senior watch station does the same, from the quartermaster of the watch, to the torpedo man of the watch, to the launcher watch, to the engineering watch. Every single watch station does that. As did, I'm certain, people that were on that bridge. And nobody followed them. And it's easy to say for the captain, well, I feel bad for him because nobody followed his order. He gave the orders. He told them what to do, and they didn't do it. Well, then why the hell did you qualify them? And what we're going to find out in this, unfortunately, what we're going to find out in this, and is, again, my initial reaction is, did we push a woman JG as OOD just because we wanted that done? It's probably incorrect. What we're going to find out is that the operating tempo and the manning levels were so bad, so low, and the operating tempo was so high that we were pushing people to get qualified so fast that we were just sort of graping them off on their signatures. By graping off, I mean we were just sort of pretending that they knew it. Well, they'll learn it. They'll catch up. They'll learn it on the job. And they never got a chance to do that. She's a Lieutenant JG. I wonder. They had not been at sea that long, folks. This was their first night at sea, as I recall, correct? How many OOD watches do you think she stood before that moment? I'm betting you could count them on one hand. We're going to find out is that we used sloppy training, sloppy procedures, and worse, we ignored things that we should have known were happening. And the captain is ultimately responsible for the crew and the safety of his ship. And he's responsible for the material condition of his ship and for the training of his crew. And the harshest thing I'm going to say, and I'm a sailor, the harshest thing I'm going to say is, there's no way in hell that captain didn't know that his people weren't really qualified. There's no way he didn't know that they were 100% ready. There's no way that he didn't know that they weren't going to get confused. Remember what I said about Lieutenant Longstaff being on the con? I'm a goddamn fire controlman. I sit in Missile Control Center. I'm nowhere near control. Well, I'm near control, but I'm not part of that. If he's on the con, I'm standing there next to him. That captain went to bed. And that tells you everything you need to know about USS Fitzgerald and the readiness of that ship. It tells you everything you need to know that nobody in the command structure of that crew was ready to go to sea. They pretended they were, but they were not. 7 sailors died because of it. That pisses me off. Pisses me off. And I don't care if she is a woman. I don't care if she's a JG. I don't care if she's an 06. I don't care. You didn't do the job. You didn't do the job that you raised your right hand and swore you'd uphold, defend, follow orders. You didn't do it. Maybe they can make something of you. I don't know. They can't boot you out and they can't confine you. For the rest of your life, 7 sailors are going to be on your account. At some point, you're going to have to explain to somebody why the hell this happened. Because there ain't nothing else that makes sense to me right now about it. I'm beyond the point anymore where I'm willing to accept the excuses. I get the social experimentation aspect of it. I get that. You want to have women on ships? Fine. You want to have young people on ships? Fine. We were all kids. We were, for God's sakes, we were young. But train them properly and don't go to freaking bed if they're not. Because if you do, it's your fault. Plain and simple. It's your fault. And while your junior officers will go to special court martial, you know what's going to happen to him. The other thing I don't understand is why none of these people are... What happened to training people in what's best for the service? What happened to people for honor to stand up and say, yeah, it's my fault? Why the excuses? Why all of that? 7 sailors. Because people were not trained, they weren't prepped, they weren't prepared, and frankly, they were stupid. And that's what happens when stupidity strikes. Voice is about shot. I'm just about at it. Ugh. Anyway, hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you'll be back tomorrow, because I will be, right here on the Dave Bowman Show on Podcast 99 Internet Radio Network. Please take the time right now. Tell the people that matter in your life you love them very much. You would miss them if they weren't there, so don't pass up those opportunities. You don't want to have that regret. I'm Dave Bowman, plausibly live. This is my show, The Dave Bowman Show. You want to comment, complain, whine, tell me I'm an idiot? That's fine. Do it on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/The Dave Bowman Show, or on Twitter. Just look for @Dave Bowman Show. We also have a website, thedavebowmanshow.com, as well as podcast99.org, where you can check out all the other great shows we have on the Podcast 99, including the Ale Evangelist, This Week in U.S. Politics, and Tim Proyce. Tim's coming up at noon. He's going to talk about Iran-Contra. There's some reasons why that's in the news again, too. I haven't listened to his show yet, so I don't know what he has to say, but I'll be tuning in then as well. See you tomorrow, everybody. Have a great day.
Possibly Live is a Slippery Fish entertainment production for the Podcast 99 Network. To contact Dave directly, call or text area code 209-565-DAVE. That's 209-565-3283. The email address is dave@thedavebowmanshow.com. For more information or to hear past shows, go to www.plausiblylive.com.
Hey, I'm going to go do something productive. I'm going to go watch television.